All right, guys, we're live. I made sure this time because we filmed a whole nice NBA show. We gave you a live before lock show like we've been doing on the weekends. And unfortunately, it did not archive, it did not save, it did not stream live. It was a good show behind the scenes, and that's where it stayed. And unfortunately, it was a live before lock show, like I mentioned. So even if we had a recording, there wasn't a whole lot of evergreen conversation or topics to really be had anyways. So I guess if we were going to just punt on a show, Donnie, that would be the one to punt on. At least it wasn't one of our best ball coverages or something like that. So
talking about unfortunate start to the show as my camera froze, so I'm gonna have to back out and rejoin here.
I see that. I noticed. See how my production's getting a little bit better. I did notice that we did switch screens, so we'll give.
So I'll be right back in a second.
Yeah, we'll give Donnie just a second here. But what we are going to do, and like and subscribe on the way in as well. Donnie's going to rejoin and come back in. Hopefully, you guys will do the same and leave us a like and subscribe. We're going to be talking some off-season free agent moves. More so, though, I want to focus on like what it means and the relationship that these free agent moves have to lineups, to different ways we might attack best ball, how we think it's going to influence the team. So that way we're not just going through, names and contracts. I mean, we can do some of that. But more so, I want to get to what does this mean for your best ball team? What does this mean for your, lineup builder shows? Are you more confident in like a JSN because he lost DK? Or do you think like his production is going to dip? Those are kind of the conversations I want to have tonight, because I think those are more unique questions. For example, everyone gave up on Cooper Kupp, Donnie, with the Rams, right? Like, oh, he's aged, he's worse, he doesn't have it anymore. We're going to move on. But then they paid Devontae Adams quite a lot at basically the same age. So that's the kind of stuff I find interesting. So they're basically saying, like, age be damned, Devontae Adams is just better than Cooper Kupp at this point. I'm not sure.
I think that's true. I think that's 100% true.
Do you? Like, I'm saying, I agree that Adams is better, but I don't know if he's that much better. And I think most people would agree with you. And so these are kind of the conversations.
Well, I mean, Adams is definitely past his prime, but like where Kupp, like Adams has passed his prime, Kupp has looked washed.
Yeah.
He has been unable to get open. Stafford would be finding him if he was open. If Matthew Stafford can't find him, he's not there.
That's correct.
That's where I feel about it.
Now, Gov's not here tonight. That was the other talking point. Yeah, he might join us. He's going to try to join us. But like free agency, we might see him, we might not. And all these deals, by the way, are agreed upon in principle. But we have seen like the 1% chance or the 2% chance that somebody will back out. I think a couple years ago, Elvin Hainsworth almost backed out of a deal, and then they gave him more money. I think Dumerville did back out of a deal once.
We had one this year. Back out, and he switched teams. Mitchell, the defensive tackle who left the Eagles and went to the Patriots, he was actually a Panther for like 2 seconds.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. He was supposed to go to the Panthers, and the Patriots called him up and was like, listen, we could beat that.
Yeah.
And he didn't sign. Like most of them now, if you've heard about it by now, most of these contracts are done. This is happening.
I don't mind going through some of the big names and like even going through the list if you wanted to, but more so we can keep it evergreen, and we can, because, for example, you were up on the news tremendously. Me and Gov were at work. We're obviously big football fans, but people are going to watch this at different points, in the offseason. So I kind of want to keep it where no matter where you are in this podcast, you can come in 20 minutes from now and it's still a good conversation, or now. So, Donnie, what I thought would be interesting is maybe talk about maybe like 5 or 6 names that you think are very important signings that we should definitely talk about. And I had some storylines off of that.
Honestly, I don't have the names off the top of my head. I have to look at the list as I'm going through.
That's fair. You can do that.
So I figure we go through the list and just kind of, the Cardinals here, they have a couple decent signings between We're not going to talk about the people re-signing. We know what they are on these teams. Just the new guys. Josh Sweat, I mean, it's going to be interesting seeing him as the guy now in a pass rush system. He is going to play every down. He hasn't done that yet, really. Mm-hmm. That's going to be interesting. And Davis Gaither, however you say his name, he's going to start probably, but is how much impact? I don't really know. Cardinal stuff doesn't entice me at all fantasy-wise. It helps them be better, but I don't know. I don't even know how much better they get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like this. So what we'll do is you can go through each team. You got it pulled up here. I can see the screen quite well. And if I have any storylines off of that, we'll stop and have that conversation.
Yeah. The next one, again, Leonard Floyd. For Devon Diablo's fine contract. Leonard Floyd, I think, is a stupid contract. I will say that. That's the evergreen story, first one. Giving $10 million for a guy who literally quit on his team last year is disgusting.
He didn't quite quit like a couple of defenders with the San Francisco 49ers. Like, they legit quit. Floyd just looks disinterested sometimes. I do agree with that.
Floyd literally left the team. Floyd was the guy who left the team.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. He left.
Floyd was the guy who said, "No, I will not go in the game."
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like a trend now that people just like this younger generation. I mean, they're my age too, but like they just give up on teams. Like that's happening more and more. So.
It's very. I mean, Floyd was the first one that's done it in a while. The last time I can think of it happening was Vontae Davis, and that's because he was like,
"I'm telling you, there was a 49ers." Like he wasn't as well known, but there was a 49ers this season that quit too.
Otherwise, the next team, because again, another team not interested in. This is these three signings. I know we said we're not talking about retaining much, but the Ronnie Staley staying, getting Patrick Ricard back is huge for the run game. Those are two amazing signings right there. Mm-hmm. And then adding Hopkins as a wide receiver 2 or 3 behind Flowers and Bateman. If Bateman still is the number 2 there, or if he ever was the number 2 there, I'm not sure. Really, it looked like he was to me anyway.
Let me make a statement on Hopkins because I do want people to hold me to it if I'm wrong, and this will be where it's like a fun evergreen conversation because you guys can track it through the offseason. I truly think that Hopkins was injured this season, and that had to do more with his production dip than anything. I think he was with a bad quarterback in Will Levis. Then he was injured. And then he went to a good team, but he had to learn a new system. Andy Reid's offense is not like, it's not a plug-and-play offense. Now, he's very smart. He was productive, but he's coming in injured and a new offense. I actually think Hopkins will return back to almost not like a superstar level.
If he's 750 yards the next season, I could definitely see that.
Right.
Get him. If he gets 65 catches for 750, I would not surprise me.
So I'll say that. Like, I think that's a bold statement, Donnie. I'll say he gets over 800 yards.
That would be mind-boggling.
I really believe that.
At his advanced age and what we've seen and the lack of health he's had, I'd be shocked.
He also played very well. The last time we seen him play well was with the Cardinals. He's a very good run blocker, especially for the outside receiver. And I do think that's going to help Lamar Jackson like it helped Kyler Murray. So maybe I am a big fan of him. So I'm biased. I'll own that. But
it's been a while since he's been a Cardinal, Logan.
It has
been a couple of years now.
But I think there's still some magic in there. Like
I do think he could still be a productive wide receiver 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And it's just a health question.
No, age is definitely a factor, Daniel. Let's not pretend. But I'm just saying I think that injury had more to do with it than just the age. But we'll see.
The big thing for Baltimore is, hey, we kept our fullback, who's a dominant fullback in the league, and our one of the best tackles in the NFL with Ronnie Staley. That's huge.
Yeah.
Otherwise, here, Greg Russo being re-signed. Shakir got, in my opinion, way too big a deal.
I actually like the Shakir deal, but I'm higher on him than most people. Like some people just like to.
Well, $60 million through 4 years. That's like 15-ish million a year.
I think it's worth it. Like truly, he has the confidence of Josh Allen, and if Josh Allen's the MVP and he's as special as we think he is, and I think he's special. He has that man's confidence, and that have to say something. I think he's a lot better of a slot receiver than he gets credit for. I think people take advantage of the fact that he's so reliant with his hands, and he's just the safety valve, that people discount that like it's a negative. But actually, I think it's a very positive thing.
And I will not be fooled by this man again. Josh Palmer will not end up on a best ball team. I don't care if he's supposed to be the wide receiver too. He's not any good. He didn't deserve $36 million.
Here's the question. This would be a callback for the OGs of our podcast, Donnie. Would you rather have Traylon Burks or Josh Palmer on your best ball team? That deserves a cough.
That's how bad that question was. It's Josh Palmer by far. My God. I mean, I know I'm dogging on the guy. He's not that bad.
And for the people that don't know, just quickly, we accidentally selected Traylon Burks one time because we had a disagreement on the order in which we were going to draft. So Traylon Burks was a controversial pick, we'll call.
To be fair, we were supposed to get Michael Thomas in like his second to last year as a Saint, which he barely played anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think he did have more fantasy points by a little bit.
we ranked them essentially, and then we disagreed on the tiebreaker, and we didn't talk about it before the show. So that's how that. You guys can go back and watch it if you want, but
it was a couple of years ago now. But you might see it again in this next year's best ball draft, which we should be doing.
We'll definitely do some. That's a good transition, by the way.
Here for the Panthers, I mean, their defense got better, which therefore their offense should be on the field a bit more, maybe, possible. Like the Panthers, I liked in best ball and stuff last year. We all did. I'm not going to say it really affects much, but knowing their defense is better and they'll be in more games makes me want to play. At least give Bryce Young another shot as a best ball quarterback, because every one of us drafted him in best ball at least once.
I was listening to Establish the Run, Adam Levitan and Evan Silva. I'm not sure how much you know about them. I watch more content than you do, but they were looking at a lot of moves for fantasy impact and like a fantasy, like what does it mean? And Evan made a really good point. He said, this free agency is fun. It's fun to go through the names and it's fun to like go through the teams and what they've done. But we got to remember that this is not complete. We still have the NFL draft. We still have tons of free agency. Right. There's going to be roster moves. So
there's still one more quarterback on the board who might be a draft day trade. He might be, but like Joe Milton, teams legitimately, there's buzz that someone's going to trade potentially a early day 3 pick or a late day 2 pick in the draft. Like that's a big deal of a potential name that could fall. We're still waiting on the Steelers, who their quarterback's going to be between Rodgers, Wilson. Yeah. Like there's a lot to still fall.
I say that to say, Donnie, I think everyone expected like these like fun but bad teams like the Patriots, having Drake May, or like the Panthers who showed flashes with Young late in the year to be like, oh, they're going to sign this big fancy free agent and it's gonna propel the. I think what they did was made very smart moves. They're not well-known blockbuster names yet. But I like what they did.
I don't want to talk about the Patriots yet. Obviously, I'm a fan of them, but I know I still occasionally listen to the sports station down there, and they're just guys I grew up listening to, and they're like, yeah, it's great, everything's fine. You're getting guys to come. But you're not getting guys who are like supposed to not be there. You're not getting the receivers yet. So that tells you still have the stigma in New England. No matter what, yeah, you can get all this stuff changed, but until like the NFLPA report cards say, hey, things are turning around, it's really not going to matter.
And sometimes,
because you need to break your stigma.
Like with the Panthers, Gov yelled at us last time for not staying on schedule and not having some structure. So let's keep on that track. But I like that the Panthers just did smart, consistent things. Like nothing too sexy, but they haven't made a mistake either. Some people make mistakes by spending way too much money too early.
I think Morig was a little bit of an overpay, but
not egregious though.
Not egregious, exactly. And it's only 3 years. There's no bad contracts here. I agree. For the Bears,
which is a win.
Yeah, for the Bears, let's talk about the trades first. Both amazing. Getting Thuney, like Thuney, Jackson, Caleb needed protection. You need to do something. I love just going all in on it. On the other side, for their signings, you sign Tanyan. He comes back. I believe this is his second stint with the Bears. You sign Grady Jarrett. I'm not a huge fan of the contract, but hey, you have money. You sign a center. I mean, your offensive line's completely done, basically. Your tackles still need some work, but that's nothing the draft can't fix.
No. Johnson said that they would consider a offensive lineman in the first round.
Yeah, no, tackles. But that's where they'd go. They'd go with tackle.
Okay.
And then you sign Dio. I don't remember how to pronounce his last name, and I'm not butchering it on
Dave
air.
Brown couldn't pronounce his last name. I've been listening to a lot of content, like I said. So don't try, Donnie.
This is an overpay. That's an egregious overpay. When there was guys who were better out there that you could have paid. Like, I just hate that contract. But it is what it is.
I have one storyline from this, and I think you would agree. I think we pretty much agree on this. Like when the Lions took over and created a culture change, and it actually worked. Like we hear that a lot. Like, oh, teams culture change, new coaches, what have you. But when it actually works is when they stick to their identity and a coach comes in with his mindset and tries to apply it and doesn't care what anyone else thinks. Like, for example, Brett Holmes drafted Gibbs. He didn't care what people thought of Gibbs in the first round. He saw Gibbs as a weapon. Johnson is doing that very same thing. I don't know if it's going to work or not. He probably doesn't know. But what Johnson believes in is offensive line. It helps your quarterback more than anything else. And that's the first thing he did was not getting off of the lineman. He went back and got Jonah Jackson from the Rams who played for his Lions, when he was the offensive coordinator. So he's getting guys that he knows, and he's getting his type of guys. Like the Lions also like short defensive tackles that are strong. You see that's what he did. He went ahead and got offensive and defensive line. It just makes so much sense.
Well, if you look at all the good teams in the NFL, what they have generally is good interior offensive and defensive lines. It matters a lot. It changes the games. So when you see Philly come out and do what they do, and you see the Lions doing what they were doing before the meltdown, hell, we'll get to it again later. It's going to be way towards the end. Washington went out and traded for offensive linemen and have one of the best interior defensive tackle duos in the league still after losing Jonathan Now. Like, that is how you win football games. I mean, generally speaking, anyway.
I think there's a lot of ways
the Chicago, if Ben Johnson's a good coach, will be a good team.
And whether they are a good team or not, obviously depends on how talented he is as a developer.
100%.
But at least he's developing his way. I love that. I don't like copycat coaches or coaches that like, oh, well, I just took this job. I got to do this to give off this impression. Like, I feel like some people do that as a coach, and at least he's going after his guys unapologetically.
I mean, I love what the Bears did, but we've said that the last 3 years. I feel like at this point, it's up to Ben Johnson. If he's a good coach, we will know very early.
Last year, they went ahead and got Rome Odunze, and they tried to get receivers. They got an extra tight end. Ben's like, you know what? That didn't work. What worked in Detroit, what I liked was offensive line. So, he's saying that's the thing that the quarterback needs. Yeah. And I think it's a combination, but I do think the Bears are on the right track.
All right, let's go to the Bengals, which, I mean, I don't even know if they did. Yeah, they didn't. I'm not interested in really anything here.
The smartest thing they did was they kept Joe Burrow happy. They paid T. Higgins.
They didn't pay him. They just tagged him. So he could just sit out all year.
They're going to pay him essentially if he doesn't sit out and, on that tag, obviously. But that keeps Joe Burrow happy because he wanted T. Higgins there.
I mean, it's just a weird offseason for the Bengals. I don't know if they have really any cap. You did nothing on defense. Like, you've done nothing to fix your terrible, terrible defense. So
I do like bringing back Tanner Hudson. I know that's a small move, but like,
well, they re-signed Mike Gesicki to a huge deal.
Yeah.
So it's like, what, Tanner Hudson's your tight end 3?
Yeah, like this is where DFS Showdown actually helps me, Donnie. Like doing those deep dives, and showdown lineups. like I do think he has some value as a utility tight end.
But again, P. Ryan's a cool signing, I guess, but nothing.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Pickett's cool. I think that's a good trade for them. They,
Very good.
they traded for Pickett. I think they gave up a 5th and what's that quarterback's name? The young one, Dorian.
Oh, Dorian
Thompson Robinson. Yeah, Thompson Robinson. I was stuck thinking Dorian Finney-Smith.
It's okay, Donnie. It took you a while because he has 3 names. So
I was thinking Dorian Finney-Smith because I'm in basketball mode, and I knew that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Browns have just kind of made good moves. Devin Bush goes to his 3rd AFC North team. But
I don't know if you know this rumor, Donnie, so this would be a good storyline on the Browns. Would you expect Kenny Pickett to start? Because I do have a rumor.
I expect him to very much fight for this job.
Okay. So the rumor was 15 minutes before we started this podcast, I saw they are looking at a veteran quarterback. Do you want to guess on who that is? Not whether it will happen, the name I saw.
I have no idea who's even left for veteran quarterbacks.
It would be Kirk Cousins coming back to the Midwest. And potentially they are the front runner and the most interested to give Kirk Cousins a starting job. So essentially you're like giving him some kind of leeway to be like, if you come here, we're going to give you the first crack. So it could be a rumor, but I did find that to be interesting.
I mean, I don't know how you can afford him really unless he takes a pay cut. But Myles Garrett, hey, listen, $40 million a year for Myles Garrett might be a little egregious. It's a crazy pay.
Yeah.
But you got to find a way to keep Myles Garrett in the building.
You got it. They kept him, but they didn't get a good value at it either.
No, they didn't get value, but you had to keep him.
Right. Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons talked about it a couple of days ago on their podcast. And it was like, it's funny when, you talk about guys wanting trades and things like that, but then when the money gets ramped up and then you realize, oh yeah, they're going to pay me more money than anyone else. Like, I'm just going to stay here. Money does still talk.
Well, I think a big deal with it is not only did he get the money, he got the no trade clause.
He got the no trade clause, right?
And that's huge because that's not handed out in the NFL very much. Unless you're the Cleveland Browns and you signed Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett. I mean, damn near probably going to trade for Harrison Butker and give him the no trade clause as well. I don't know why they just hand it out like it's just.
And right now it looks like a good thing because Myles Garrett, like, you keep your superstar happy. But we saw it in the NBA, Bradley Beal has a no trade clause, and that looks very bad now because they're kind of stuck. So we'll see how that ages because, like you say, you don't see it in the NFL very often.
It's not normal in the Browns.
Here's the question: would you have given it to him?
Yes, I give Myles Garrett whatever the hell he wants. I give him the blank check that the Browns gave him.
I agree with
Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
If this contract comes back to bite them 4 years from now, okay, whatever. Same thing. If Aaron Donald said, I would have stayed with the Rams if you would have given me that contract. Well, guess what? Aaron Donald would have got that contract for me.
A sneaky good sign is Devin Bush. I think getting Devin Bush.
That's a very, very decent sign because he's just,
Not biased. He played in Michigan, but I feel like he's
played for all the good AFC North teams. But he knows how to play linebacker.
In college, he was athletic, and you're going to get a really athletic guy who has a chip on his shoulder. Like, he was supposed to be a lot more productive, and so to get him for $3 million, even if the potential is not full, what you thought he was going to be, like, that's just a good signing.
Yeah, I agree. Cowboys, shocker. The Cowboys haven't. I mean, Javonte Williams is a good signing for so cheap, especially. Otherwise, I don't know what to say about Dallas, dude. Like, poor Dallas fans, man.
I like Williams.
I probably will have some Javonte Williams stock in best ball. I will say that.
I do think Denver misused him.
I will say that. I would not be shocked if Javonte Williams ends up on one or two of my best ball teams with the 17th round pick.
I'll say this. I think he could be 1,000-yard rusher.
I think, it's very rare now for, like, once you get your second contract, it's very rare to see that.
But Dallas is one of the teams I could actually see it happening. Like they don't have a lot of depth. They actually got rid of. Didn't they get rid of? Why am I blanking on his name
Zeke.
now? No, obviously I don't know if they have Zeke or not. I'm talking
They
about
don't have Zeke. It's Dowdle or Rico Dowdle. He should still be there, I think.
Rico. I think got released. I thought.
Hold on, I'll look. Rico Dowdle.
If I'm wrong, then this changes. But I do think Williams is the only viable. I know they have a couple young guys.
Dowdle. No, Dowdle is a free agent.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh, gosh, you're right. I know now he just really jumped off my draft board. Unless they draft someone, but like, yeah, Javonte Williams and whoever they draft are high on my draft board right now.
Yeah, and we have seen people come back to teams after they've been cut. So I mean, maybe, but I just think Williams.
He's not expected to come back. But I saw a thing and I sent it to the Discord earlier of like the Cowboys have not paid a free agent over $6 million since they signed Greg Hardy in 2016. The cap has since over doubled.
Yeah,
what it was back then. True. They're terrible at this.
If you know how to puzzle piece a cap together, I don't think it really exists. I mean, it exists, but I feel like if you have
but they're not even in cap trouble. They don't go after free agents.
I think
they don't care.
It wasn't his philosophy. I'm like, dude, you have to like. There's many different ways to skin a cat, but you got to be willing to at least entertain all of them at some point.
I don't even want to like spend too much time on this because it's what everyone's saying. It's just Dallas, you're terrible at what you do right now. Everything.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance to everything, Donnie. You could say maybe you favor the draft over free agency, but come on, there's time to spend and there's time.
Greg Hardy's the last person who gets $6 million, and remember that contract was after a domestic violence dispute. A couple. Didn't he get like banned from the league for a bit?
Yeah.
Like a terribly run.
Get this podcast taken down for mentioning his name. That's how much the NFL wants to scrub his name from the record books.
Denver, very Sean Payton offseason, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get your linebacker, you get your safety. That cool.
I think
they're a playoff team again.
I think Greenlaw. I don't like his injury history. I think he was a benefactor of a really good defense, and he fit that system, and that ballooned his productivity. I wouldn't have paid him anywhere close to that.
That's pretty cheap for an outside linebacker. Like that's not a bad deal. By year 2 you can cut him. It's not a bad deal.
It's not a bad deal if you think he's a quality starter. I just don't think he's a quality starter. I think he fit a role within the 49ers, and everyone else around him made him look better. But I guess we'll find out.
And, you bring around his teammate Hufanga, which I think is a very good safety.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that signing. I'd imagine they're going to be the only teams in the Von Miller sweepstakes. I can't imagine he's getting many calls. So I'd expect him to go there for a year and end his career with Denver, but that's just assumption.
It would be Cinderella story, and there is one thing that you can pretty much guarantee with Denver. They know how to play defense, and they have such a depth, Donnie, that they could rotate.
It would be a very good fit.
Yeah. Sean Payton already likes to rotate anyway. He doesn't like to overuse starters. So Von Miller going there would be a perfect fit.
I think it's a great fit, but again, not going to speculate. That's not what this is about right now. Detroit, you lose, what's his name? Carlton Davis. You get DJ Reed, who's probably better for being on the field at this point. Maybe not the better corner, but he was on the field much more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good signing. And it's a lot cheaper of a signing. I like that. I like what Detroit did, but again, doesn't really affect how I look at them.
See, we were so injured. I mean, if people know I'm a Lions fan, we were so injured. Marcus Davenport played like the very beginning of the year, had looked really good in preseason. Like said, he was.
We spoke about Davenport when he got signed last year, and I really liked the signing. I thought it was a great deal. If he stayed healthy, that's just been the big thing. He's a good player. He's just not playing much.
Well, and that was the problem. Is like he showed flashes and potential, but there was always something, you know. And going into this offseason, we gave him a prove-it contract, and he was proving everything. He was hitting those mile markers in preseason. You know, the first 2 games of the year, I believe he looked really good, and then he just got hurt. Yeah. And I love that he wanted to come back. Like, he was like, yeah, I know the contract's not going to be great. I know the money's going to be repressed. I want to come back.
Well, I think 4.7 is a very generous deal for Marcus Davenport. Like, that's pretty. I don't know if he gets that many other places, but also the cap inflated so much this year that maybe that's just what the going rate is for guys like him.
Well, shout out to Colin Davis, who we'll talk about when he went to the Patriots. He basically told the Lions the opposite. He's like, look, I signed with you at a prove-it deal. I proved myself. I want to get paid now. And the Lions were respectful of that and being like, yeah, we understand. We offered you
move on to the next guy.
Right. So I just respect those type of things. Reed's a good player, though.
Yeah, DJ Reed, that's a good signing for them. On the other end, the Packers, same division. You know, you get a guard. I never will bash getting offensive line. We've seen how helpful it is. Hobbs, you know.
He's probably the best slot corner in the league, I feel like, or could be. But he's just so limited as he's not a shutdown guy. He's a very good corner, but given his...
It's not a bad deal. 4 years, $48 million. That's what, 12 a year about? Like, it's not a bad deal. It's just, I feel like
Hobbs is very consistent and he fills a role, but because of his size and stature, he only can do certain things.
They lost Stokes, so he is going to replace those Stokes plays probably. Which, you know, not that Stokes is a huge loss, but it is a loss, and you lost one of your best athletes there.
I mean, this would be a bit of a preview to the season, but I could see the Packers being the worst team in the division. I think a lot of teams got better.
I don't want to get into predictions yet. Houston, CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. I like it for them. Like, you know, you get Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk should be the slot guy. That will allow Tank Dell to move outside. Now I really like that offense in the scheme of if Tank Dell's back and healthy, and now you have Christian Kirk as the slot guy, that should open up the offense to like Diggs going there. He's more of what Diggs shouldn't have been. Diggs shouldn't have been their slot guy. Diggs is very good. Well, not very good, but Diggs is good still, but it wasn't a great fit. This feels like the fit that they needed.
But much like Diggs, I think at this point you just don't know what you're going to get. Like, the potential of what you could get would be special, and that's what Diggs is. But like, Kirk's been injured a lot, and then he's played with Trevor Lawrence, who's been inconsistent. But if you get the high end of what Kirk could be, this would be a steal. I could say that.
Well, I mean, it's not a steal because of what he's getting paid, but I will say it fits more seamless than what the Diggs thing fit. It makes more sense.
Well, I mean, he maybe not like a great value, but I really do think if fully healthy and at his apex, he could be a number 1 receiver.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, maybe not anymore, but 2 years ago, yeah. Other side, CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. I like it for the Texans because you know they didn't want to pay Green. They needed help in the secondary. So you get those two things off those two issues out of the way as this. You're off one of the worst starting guards in the league last year. And which part of that is CJ Stroud's fault, in my opinion, but that's a different thing. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, it fills a need. So it was just a good move on their side, in my opinion.
And you don't got releases on this screen, right? Because they got rid of Mason as well. Like, one thing I will say, at least
they got rid of Shaq Mason, and they traded Alarmy Tunsil, who, granted, I know you said you don't love him, but he is one of the best blindside tackles in the league. He does do his job. They got a lot for him. They got a second, they got a third, and a fourth. Second, a third, and a fourth. And that's a good haul.
I think it's addition by subtraction, literally saying, hey, look, Tunsil would be a great guy if all we needed was one more tackle. We need to take this talent and turn it into 2 talent.
They completely overhauled this offensive line, and that offensive line was not good. As a unit, they were not good together. I know the names are okay. Shaq Mason is still okay as a guard. Laremy Tunsil is still probably one of the top 5 left tackles in the league. But I mean, if it's not fitting, it's not fitting, and that's fine.
Yeah. I think it was more like we need 2 or 3 guys to change this offensive line, and so to do that, we need to trade our best one so we can get 2 or 3 names.
And on the other end of it, you bring in Laken Tomlinson. That's your new starter at guard. One of them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sheldon Rankins is a good nose tackle. You get a kick returner here with Smith. And, Justin Watson, he's been one of Justin Watson and Braxton Berrios probably gets cut in the training camp or preseason, I'd imagine.
I don't think Tomlinson is a starting guard at this point. He's a good, utility swing guy. He's probably your first guy off the bench if you want to use that 6-man NBA analogy. Donnie, if I said to you the first 3 rounds of the draft are going to be offensive linemen for the Texans, would I be wrong? Because I
think that's the right thing to do.
I think it is.
The offensive line, I don't know how deep it is in the draft this year, but to say you're going to trot out 3 starting rookies is a very huge risk when you have a young quarterback back there who's no.
That's what I mean about Laremy Tunsil, though. I'm okay with it if you're taking those draft picks and turning them into more than you had offensive line. If they don't do that, well, that's a mistake.
Well, I mean, they've got a decent amount of picks this draft coming up. But again, Justin Watson, I get signing him to a cheap deal. Braxton Berrios, he's a special teamer. He might make the team just off of that. He can play some snaps at wide receiver. I just think they're so deep at receiver. I don't know how exactly this all fits. And somebody's going to be the odd man out and be cut or traded for a 7th.
Mm-hmm. I don't really like anything they did.
I don't love anything they did. It's just they made the moves that needed to be made.
I like what they got rid of. I like getting rid of Tunsil for the draft picks, but now they got to use the draft picks, right? That's the only positive.
Well, and they got a lot of salary out of it.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
When you eat so much salary with getting a guy like Christian Kirk, I don't know.
And that's why I say with ETR, they say, don't forget the offseason is not complete yet. We got the draft. We have more days of agency. We have to see what the Texans are doing. They're incomplete right now.
Colts-wise, Daniel Jones, I think that's the perfect guy to bring in and say, hey, AR, you better start putting your shit together because it's
apparently they might trade him now. They're trying to trade him at least to see what the interest is. And if the interest
if you can get a second rounder for Anthony Richardson, I'm taking a second rounder for him. I'm sorry. I'm done with that.
Because this is fun. There is part of fun speculation. So let's do some. The team that has the highest interest right now is the Steelers.
I don't think that's a fit at all. I hate that. I think that's an awful fit.
I mean, it was rumored that Tomlin really wanted a running quarterback, and that's why he was enamored with Justin Fields. So, I do see the relationship there potentially being a rushing quarterback for the Steelers.
Charvarius Ward, a same contract. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty sure that's the same exact contract Carlton Davis got, and I think they're pretty much the same situation. I view them as pretty much the same. So, very long defenders, but they're not always healthy.
To me, that just speaks to the 49ers team is going to look a lot different.
Philly's going to look a lot different too, but Philly still has a lot more talent in the building than.
I love Daniel Jones. So here's the thing: is they basically said, hey, we're going to pay you almost $15 million, and apparently there's a lot of incentives. We talk about incentive week for week 17 in DFS, Donnie. Apparently, there's a lot of incentives if he was to start, if he's to play snaps. So, do you think this is a true competition?
Yes, it is. This 100% is a competition. I mean, Joe Flacco was getting snaps for him last year. For that reason, it's a competition. They do not trust Anthony Richardson. That's clear.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is, I think the Colts are much better than the Giants. So they should be competitive. They should be able to get 8 wins if Daniel Jones is forced to be the starter. I don't think Daniel Jones is terrible. I don't love the guy, but I know there's talent there. I know he's a very talented guy.
This will be his best offensive coach he's ever played for.
This might be his best offense he's ever played in.
It
That's
is.
disgusting, by the way.
It is his best offense. And I think so, but I don't think he's like a world beater, but I do think he's a great signing.
I'm not sure. It's close. It might be like 10 million to 14 million. But I think this is the exact same contract Jacoby Brissett got last year with the Patriots. If you have the money and a guy's available, I think you should always go out there and try to get him.
Yeah.
Like, if you think Daniel Jones will make your quarterback room better, if you think Daniel Jones can propel Anthony Richardson to say, I need to figure this shit out,
and I don't care
sign Daniel Jones.
If you are the Giants or you are the Kansas City Chiefs, for example, a position that you got to pay attention to is quarterback. Like if Patrick Mahomes went down, quarterback is the number one concern. So having two, prove-it guys is not a bad thing at quarterback for me.
And we haven't said anything about Cameron Bynum. That's a fine contract. It doesn't really change anything to me. It doesn't move the needle. On the other side, now Jags made a lot of moves. I don't know if anything I recognize a couple names though. Like also Nick Mullins getting another contract in the NFL. I didn't even see this contract. I did not see him getting another contract in the NFL, especially multi-year deal.
They have a new general manager. The one thing I will say is he somehow got off that Christian Kirk contract. You mentioned it earlier, just being a bad contract. I actually agree, especially for Jacksonville, it's a bad contract because they got to do a lot of things. So I will give him credit for getting off of the players. That's where it's an addition by attraction thing for me.
Yeah. You just get more talent in the building. I don't like this Dummy Brown contract. That's $10 million for a guy who was barely a wide receiver 2 in Washington. If he was, I don't even think he would have been called that. That's a big deal. That's ugly.
Like that.
But it's only 1 year. So you can sign bad contracts if it's only 1 year in length. That's just saying I have extra salary cap right now, and I need to put it somewhere because I don't want it to just,
And he did look good down the stretch of that. Commanders
exactly. I think it makes perfect sense. It's for 1 year. If it was a 2-year deal, I would absolutely hate it. I think it's awful. But because it's 1 year, I'll get by it. The tight end room, is Hunter Long going to... No, it's going to be Strange. Strange will be the starter. Signing 2 tight ends tells me that Strange stock is going to be high next year because he is the starting tight end.
Yeah, it tells me that Johnny might actually win the number 2 job, though, because he got 5.
Yeah, we don't know what Hunter Long got here. It's not posted. But I just think they've pretty much made all good moves. You had to change a lot around.
Is a blocker, so maybe you see him at a fullback position, like a utility kind of position too. So that's also possible.
Yeah, I think Jags have done everything right. I'm not interested in fantasy wise because I don't know what's happening with Trevor Lawrence. I love the guy, but I'm so biased towards him.
I like a young general manager being like, you know what, I'm going to do things my way. And one of the first statements I can make to do that is going to be unpopular, but it's getting rid of Evan Ingram and it's getting rid of Christian Kirk and the names
The reason why you get rid of Evan Ingram is because he wasn't healthy last year. You were going to have to pay him a lot of money.
And he's making too much.
And Brennan Strange looked good.
Yeah.
Brennan Strange forced their hand. It was nothing to do with Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram lived up to his contract.
And that's where I'm being honest, Johnny. Having that fantasy outlook is very valuable because when Strange is 2,500 in DK, you pay attention. And maybe that's why I noticed him quicker. But once I noticed him and put him in a lineup, I started watching him. I'm like, damn, this guy's good. That's where fantasy actually does
look really good.
Payoffs.
On to Kansas City. Elijah Mitchell, I think, is a great signing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much he'll play, but I know he'll get snaps with Andy Reid if he's healthy. We saw the last time the guy was healthy, he looked really good. He just hasn't been healthy in 2 years. Otherwise,
what stands out to me is Brown got $10 million, and you thought that was crazy. Hollywood got the same contract essentially, but for $1 million more. And I view Hollywood Brown. Maybe I'm biased because he's got a cool name. He played for a team I like, But I just think Hollywood Brown's so much of a better receiver than Brown is.
Oh, he is. Yes, he's
Hollywood was
by
coming
far
out
the
of
better.
injury.
Yeah. Hollywood is a good. We like it. I think this is the same contract he got last year. It was a great signing last year. It's still a good signing this year.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, Christian Fulton, I love this signing. I think he's going to be working wonders over there in Kansas City. I really think he's going to play a lot of important snaps for them. But it's Kansas City. We know what they are.
That's the corner, and I'm not going to pretend to know everything. Like, that's part of being transparent with football fans. Sometimes the name escapes me, but that's the corner from Tennessee, right?
I don't believe.
I
don't know if he played in Tennessee last year. No, it was Chargers last year.
Yeah, but I believe he was drafted by Tennessee. If that's the case, then it's the corner.
I don't know if it's that.
It might.
Yeah, he was the Tennessee guy.
Okay, so he was a late bloomer. This is the guy I'm thinking of. He was a late bloomer, and then
if he's gonna make it work, he's gonna make it work in Kansas City.
Yeah, he finally looked good with the Chargers. Didn't look good with Tennessee at all. And then Jim Harbaugh got all the credit. So we're gonna see now, in Kansas City.
The Raiders, obviously, you trade for Geno, you make a couple signs. You completely Eric Stokes is now there. You change your whole secondary basically.
Yeah.
You changed a lot. You're a very different team this year. I don't know how Geno Smith is going to look with the Raiders. Honestly, the Raiders are going to depend on how their draft goes. But I don't love any team that Geno Smith is wide receiver is Jacoby Myers. I don't think they're going to look good fantasy wise. I don't want any. Maybe the run game should theoretically be good with Pete Carroll in them.
I do got to mention just Kansas City really quickly. Matt Asiata getting the punter getting another contract after all the turmoil and emotional.
He hasn't been under contract yet. He has a tender on him, which means somebody can offer him, and the Chiefs have a chance to match.
Could be. I hope he
will be on a team next year. It's just whether somebody matches if the Chiefs want to match somebody's big offer.
It's a fantastic story of just like how to stay dedicated and committed to your craft, and I couldn't be happier for the guy.
Yeah, very resilient. If you don't know the Matt Araiza story, very sad what he had to go through. But he worked his way back, and he looks really good. He's one of the best punters in the league.
And sometimes that unfairness, reveals a lot of character, and so I'm just really impressed.
I am too. I mean, we talked about that last year, his first contract back in the NFL, because we were live when that news broke, and I was very happy to see it. I remember talking about it when he first got signed, and I was very happy for him. So moving on, Chargers wise,
the Raiders. I have one thing on the Raiders.
Okay.
Is Max Crosby a legit, scary, elite defensive end for you? Because he is not for me. But
from what I hear from NFL players on all these new podcasts, NFL players thinks he's one of the guys. The stats says he's one of the guys. It tells me he's one of the guys.
And Pete Carroll is a guy's guy. He is the kind of raw motivator. Loves that energy. He loves that high motor guy. So in that respect, it makes
another great story, by the way.
Right, great story. Eastern Michigan guy, wasn't given a lick, had to earn everything. He's a great story. A good.
He went through the alcohol abuse, right?
Yeah,
I
believe so. Yeah.
He completely sober now, and he turned his NFL career around with it. And again, great story.
But I don't think he is elite anymore. I'm sorry. I don't.
He's very young, actually. If you look at it, he's not as old as you think.
I don't know. I'm not a fan.
That's fine. It doesn't really matter. He don't care. I don't Okay, this is the fun one. This is the fun one for me. Khalil Mack's back. The Chargers did everything right. You get Dante Johnson, who I think that's a great deal for him. Najee Harris might be my favorite running back to draft this year. I wasn't a Najee guy last year. I would not play him at all. I would not sign him ever. I was not a Najee guy. This is a match made in heaven. I feel like he's about to have 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns.
I agree with you, but I want to see if we agree for the same reasons. Why do you think he is a good, let's say, value? Because I'm not going to say you need to draft him early, because part of the reason you like him, I'm assuming, is because he's
I'm going to get him in the 4th, 5th round.
Probably. I think even later, if you drafted now. I think sooner than later he'll get steamed up. But Why do you like him so much? Because I have one reason, and
I love the talent already there,
Mhm.
for one, and he is literally the exact running back Jim Harbaugh wants. Like, he is perfect for Harbaugh's system.
Yep.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. This is who Harbaugh was looking for last year when they signed Gus Edwards, and they were, looking around.
We know he's a workhorse already, and we know Jim Harbaugh loves workhorses. J.K. Dobbins is gone. Haskins did not work.
Gus Bus is cut.
Gus Buck is gone as well. So maybe they bring back Jake, but right now Harris is literally the only guy they got, and I just feel
That
like
will change.
He went to the perfect spot though. Yeah, of course it will. Draft. Who knows what they'll do?
This is just I mean, talk about the exact running back Harbaugh's been looking for the last 2 years. This is his guy.
Obviously,
I would not be surprised if he gets a big contract extension next year.
Vidal's still there, and he does the opposite things. Like, he's more the lightning guy. He's more the receiver. But I really do think Harris could get 30 touches per game. This is a steal in best ball. I agree with you.
Well, I think they'll be passing more, but yeah. I mean, it's just this is like start on my best ball stuff. I will have a lot of Najee stock depending on where he's getting drafted.
Yeah.
Rams wise, we're waiting on the Cooper Kupp news. You get Devontae Adams. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. Devontae, I think he's better. $23 million a year, 2 years. You could. I'm assuming there's an out after year one. That's a good deal. It's just a good deal.
Is it weird to you that they gave up on Cooper Kupp, given his age, his production, but then Adams is basically the same age, same high leverage moments? They were willing to pay Adams and not Cooper.
All it tells me is Cooper Kupp might like. We were on Cooper Kupp a lot last year. We played him a lot when we shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
If like we said at the start of the show, if Cooper Kupp was not open, then he was not open. Stafford would have thrown it to him if he was there.
Maybe
Cooper Kupp might just be done. And I at least know Devontae Adams isn't. I know Devontae Adams is not done. I don't know if Cooper Kupp is.
There is that potential, but I would draw a comparison to Luka. Maybe Cooper was out of shape. Maybe he took for granted that Matthew Stafford was there. Maybe he got lazy and well, I know this scheme so well. I know McVay. I know I have Puka Nacua. I don't have to try as hard to get open. Maybe he took all that for granted. And now the chip on his shoulder to say, hey, wait a minute. They said they didn't want to pay me because I was older. They said they didn't want to pay me because I wasn't a superstar. And then they go ahead and pay Devontae Adams before I'm even off the roster. So I'm just saying, if you're Cooper Kupp and you can get motivated, he should have the hugest chip on his shoulder.
It tells me a lot that nobody wants to pay him, though.
Yeah, I still love him. I think if there's ever a time to show it, it's now. If the chip's not on your shoulder now and you're not ready to prove it, you probably should just retire.
Well, I think he's going to give it his all. I just don't know how much he's got left in the tank. Miami, they got to feed him Melifonwu. I know that's one of your Lions guys, but they did nothing of note to me. This is a terrible offseason so far for Miami. When you probably should be looking to retool your lineup, the best sign you can get is James Daniels. Yeah, no.
I'll be honest, Melifonwu, they probably overpaid for. He's a really cool, athletic, unique prototype, like 6'3", 6'4", but he's always been hurt. And I think you could have gotten him for like a Devin Bush level contract where it's like $3 million. To pay him $4 million, I think is too much.
I mean, honestly, in the NFL, nitpicking $750,000 is so.
Maybe, because you're right. You mentioned the contract in cap, so you're probably right about that.
It's 1 year stuff.
We can move on, though.
Zach Wilson, I like Zach Wilson getting another. He will be starting by week 4. I probably will play him in week 4.
By the way, we talk about DFS. We're talking about a fantasy outlook. Preseason DFS, you should be playing.
100% preseason. If you're playing it, Westbrook-Ikine and Zach Wilson feel like a good match.
And maybe that's why we're giving him praise now, because he looked really good in the preseason last year. So that's a good signing.
Minnesota, they've done everything right, I think.
Everything right.
Everything right. These are really good signings. You get Jonathan Allen, you get a new guard, you get a new center. Mm-hmm. You're setting up JJ McCarthy for success.
And even though I'm a fan of a team like the Lions, I've never been like that biased rival fan where it's like, fuck the Bears. I'm going to say something bad about this team. I love Kevin O'Connell. He deserved Coach of the Year along with Dan Campbell. You could have made the argument for either one of those guys, or maybe even another name. But I like what they've done. Kevin O'Connell is building a team. Even noticing that, hey, Sam Darnold didn't look good in the playoffs. We got J.J. McCarthy. Like, it's almost like they plan, like they have a present plan, they have a future plan. I just like every culture thing that the Vikings have done.
No, these are, their offensive line is now set. If J.J. McCarthy looks bad, then he probably is just bad. Like, honestly.
Yeah. But even if he's bad, Donnie, I feel like Kevin O'Connell
should still be good enough to win. You're 100% right.
Yeah, they'll find a way. Like, he convinced Daniel Jones to come in as an emergency quarterback late in the year and sign with him in case there was an injury. So, like, I feel like, I don't know. I'm big on Kevin O'Connell.
Like, I really think, like, this is just, if you had to drop the perfect offseason for Minnesota, this would be it. And I think right now, if you look at their team today, they are better today way better today than they were in January.
And I know
that's a big deal.
I know Ryan Kelly's not the same guy he was with the Colts. He's not the first round pedigree young athletic anymore. He's older, but the $18 million is still a steal for a center that
will start and can communicate with your rookie quarterback very well.
I like that move a lot.
Patriots, you re-sign Austin Hooper. That makes a lot of sense. That's a good contract. Like, him and him and Drake May had a good rapport. You signed Josh Dobbs. I know me and you don't like Dobbs as a backup quarterback, but he'll be the backup next year, where you're most definitely trading Joe Milton. So that's a good contract there. I look at this. Outside of Carlton Davis, maybe, I love all these contracts. And Carlton Davis is like, growing up as a Patriots fan, we always had a long corner who's very physical, who could do something. Like, that makes sense that they're going to go after him. This team is built in Mike Vrabel's vision, for sure.
Donnie, we met on a Madden game. Like, gaming has been part of our culture for a long time. If you could turn off the injuries on this Patriots defense, I would love it. Like, Carlton Davis with Gonzalez makes perfect sense.
And a very good slot corner in Marcus Jones.
But even when he fights through injuries, Donnie, he's always nicked up. Like, that's the reason the Lions signed him. So I'm not even trying to make a Lions bias point. The Lions signed him because Tampa gave up on him because he was injured. And then he goes to the Lions, looks really good at times, but is often on the IR injury report. Like, not even the injury report, on the IR last year. And it's like, if he could stay healthy, he could be really special.
I'm just, as a Patriots fan, I'm going to just speed run it real quick. Milton Williams, oh my God, love it. Perfect pairing on the inside with Christian Barmore. That defensive tackle duo, if Christian Barmore comes back and is healthy, amazing. Carlton Davis, if he plays 14 games, amazing. Harold Landry. Jesus, we've been looking for a guy like that for the past couple seasons.
I'll say this, Johnny. If Davis plays 14 games, he's a Pro Bowler. That's how much I love the talent. I just don't trust the injuries. I wouldn't have given that guy $30 million. That's how much I hate the injuries.
Robert Spielline, he's been one of the league leaders in tackles for the past couple seasons. He's always the biggest problem with the Patriots defense last year is they could not tackle. That's not an issue with Spielline, and I love that. Morgan Moses was the best offensive tackle probably in the league, or available right now in free agency. You get him. Matt Collins, I that just makes me smile because I know Buffalo fans are upset. And he should play. Otherwise, I don't care about the other.
I think Matt Collins actually could have played more for the Bills. You could argue maybe should have. I think his use on that team is undervalued and underappreciated because they had so many other names, because they brought in Cooper late. I think, there was a lot of name value on the Bills. He was actually productive. He was a productive name. He wasn't just a name. He was a productive.
He was a good deep threat, and I think him and Drake May will hit on a couple of deep balls next year, and that matters.
The gimmick definitely helped him get noticed, but like he got noticed for my fantasy relevancy because his price was always lower than his production. I think he's a very good wide receiver.
I think that signing made a lot of sense. You don't overpay at receiver. Don't be the idiots paying Dame Brown $10 million. Matt Collins for 4.2 a year. That's a good deal.
Very quickly on the Patriots, because we haven't really talked much. I was at work a lot during the free agency when you were breaking a lot of this news. You know what really pisses me off is like the Patriots had to spend money, Donnie. If they didn't spend money, they were going to basically face like a fine, basically from the league, right? They had to like.
I did not know that. Like I think there probably is like you have to spend a certain amount of your salary, but like
I think there's a stipulation that you have to like you have 3 years to spend X amount of money, and so like they had basically punted it off for 2 years because they were rebuilding, and they had so many rookies come in that like this year they had a floor that they had to spend that was like something crazy. And so like I didn't feel like fans get so enamored with like, oh, they gave $104 million to Williams.
Milton Williams was getting that from someone.
First of all,
the Panthers were going to sign Milton Williams for probably about the same.
Maybe it's the Giants, and like that would have been a terrible signing for the Giants because they're not as talented as the Patriots are. But that's the thing that drives me nuts about fans is we don't pay the money, Donnie, and we see the cap go up every year. And if there's these kind of thresholds, like why not?
Yeah, like, no, that Milton Williams contract 4 years from now, if he is what we all saw him as in Philly and we think he's going to be, I think the danger of signing a Philly defensive lineman is he that good because he's fresh and being able to sub in all the time against offensive linemen who are just tired, or is he that good?
You can be pissed if you think it's too much for his talent. I would listen to that argument. But just using money alone to make your disagreement, that stuff drives me nuts.
A lot of Patriots fans and Patriots media is upset because we didn't go pay, like we didn't trade for DK Metcalf, and the Patriots said they were not willing to give up their second-round pick for DK, which I think is fine because giving up a high $2 and $30 million for a receiver, right. I think that's a hefty price. I personally would have done it. But I get why you wouldn't.
And what I like that is you can make the argument either way, Donnie, but what I would have really hated is they were like, well, we would trade for DK, but he wanted $30 million. Or we would trade for DK, but he wanted 50. I hate it when you lead with money as your excuse.
The big deal breaker was the second round pick. They were not giving up that second.
Which I get, because that's a development pick.
And you didn't pay Godwin. Obviously he just goes back to Tampa off an injury at 29. Maybe that's for the best. I think Godwin would have been worth an overpay, but
I think it's a smart move for Godwin too. You don't have to learn a new system. Coming back off an injury, you obviously need that medical team. That medical team, nursed you back to health. You probably developed a good emotional bond with the guys who literally helped save your career. And so I get like wanting to stay committed to that team, and just run it back.
But like, I would have been very upset with the Patriots if they went and said, okay, Darius Slayton, we're going to pay you $18 million a year. That would have made me upset. I don't believe in overpaying like that for a guy. So if you weren't going to get the top names, go get Matt Collins and say, we'll try it again. Because at the end of the day, you invested a high second round pick in Jalen Polk. You invested a high fourth round pick in Javon Baker. You have other guys in the building that, yes, it didn't work last year, but there's talented guys in the building. You can't tell me Kendrick Bourne has no talent. You cannot tell me that Demario Douglas has no talent. You can't tell me Jalen Polk and Javon Baker don't have talent. Keyshawn Boutte looked decent last year. There are guys in the building. You don't need to go and pay Darius Slayton, another decent receiver, $18 million.
Let's not pretend that like you don't need the most talented receiver either if you think Drake May is that talented, because talent.
You see what Buffalo did. You see what Kansas City's been doing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's elite talent raises the elite talent of other people around him. So, like, if Drake May is as good as you think he's going to be, he's going to raise up some of these receivers.
And I would be so upset if the Patriots went and traded for Brandon Ayuk. Like, at this point, I'm just saying, if you like a guy in the draft, yes, take him. But I'm not overpaying for somebody, whether it's draft picks or in free agency. I'm not going to overpay to be disappointed. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. DK Metcalf would have been the one exception. Is as a fan myself, that's where I draw that line of like, DK is good enough. I would have given him that.
For you, yeah. But you're not even saying that as a blanket statement for all Patriots fans. You're just saying for you, he would have been your exception.
But I think a lot of that has to do with frustration of what we haven't had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, as a fan, I can say that, but as an organization, you have to draw a line.
We have made good progress, though, so I don't want to get sad up here. We have a few more teams, right?
We have a few more. Saints, Justin Reed, they find money again to pay someone. Okay, Justin Reed and Honey Badger, I believe, is still there. I'm not sure. You paid Chase Young the huge deal. But I'm not interested.
That's my problem is, like, they basically signed Reed, which is okay. You got a good, good deal on a veteran who might still have some juice. But literally the same day they signed him was like, oh, they're going to be basically releasing Honey Badger. And to me, like, if you're going to take a chance on a veteran who shows...
Well, Justin Reed's a lot younger. A lot younger.
But, I mean, yeah, I guess.
And then a weird trade for Devon Godshaw. You give up a 7th for 3rd in Godshaw. That's what he was known as in New England anyway. Because he's a great third down run stuffer. But that's it. Like... And he's on an ugly contract. He's going to make like $9 million.
Did the Patriots misuse him? Could he be a more...
No, he is literally just 3rd in Godshaw. That's it.
I thought so too. But
he is like... I'm not joking. I think he's making $9 million next year. He's on a bad contract.
If we're wrong, how are we wrong? How could he be a every down defensive tackle? Is that even possible?
No, he has no pass rush ability. He is just a
I agree with you, but I just want to play devil's advocate. I actually agree. If we're wrong, we'll be dead wrong on this one. It's a dead horse.
And I do like him as a player. Like, if he wasn't making $9 million, oh my God. Yes. I love some Godshaw.
It'd be like asking Kyle Juszczyk to be a full-time running back. Like, he's really good as a fullback, really good at his role, really good at filling what he does best, but don't ask him to do something he can't do.
Exactly. New York Giants. I mean, also Tommy DeVito re-signed for $1 million. I feel like they really I feel like that's a really steal of a deal, right?
I feel like that's a brand ambassador type move. Like, that's just hey, we got this Tommy DeVito. Tommy, he's got the whole.
I actually think that's a steal of a deal. DeVito for only $1 million. Like, wow.
No, I don't think he could start in the UFL. He's terrible.
This is not a good signing here at corner. Javon Holland, your defense is better again, but that's not the problem. You're paying for. I know the offensive side, and I'm giving the Patriots this benefit of the doubt where they don't have to get offensive guys. But you're going to draft a rookie quarterback potentially. You need to get this offense a little bit better. I'm sorry. You can't throw another rookie out there to the Wolves like you've been doing.
You called it 2 weeks ago. That's still the favorite in the clubhouse. If you looked at the DraftKings Sportsbook.
I think it's going to move to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh should be the favorite for
That's
Rodgers.
What it's looking like now. But I'm saying, when I looked at it last, which was over 24 hours ago, it was still Aaron Rodgers to the Giants was the number one favorited thing on DraftKings.
But this offense sucks, and you've done nothing. Mm-hmm. Literally nothing. I'm sorry, James Hudson doesn't count to me. Even if he does start, that's not no. This is terrible. A terrible offseason by New York. Even if you draft perfectly, it's still a bad offseason. You overpaid on corner. You got another safety that you didn't need, and you paid him a big bag.
Yeah. I've never been a Brian Daboll guy. I think he yells a lot. He's confrontational. He doesn't create a good working environment, and I really do believe that's why a lot of free agents choose not to go.
Oh, and by the way, you paid Darius Slayton a huge contract, which I know he's decent, but 3 years for Darius Slayton, you don't even know what's going to be. You might be starting a rebuild in 3 years again.
De'Ami Brown got $10 million, and De'Ami Brown to me is so much better than Slayton.
I don't think he's better than Slayton, but I'm not a Slayton guy either, but I know Slayton's a good talent.
Maybe. I don't see it. I've never seen it.
Moving on, because Giants are awful. Jets, Justin Fields got a very team-friendly deal again. If you were gonna sign someone, Justin Fields would have been the guy, I guess. That's a good contract for. But to me, it's like in 2 years we'll be looking for the next guy again.
I do got some insight on that though. Aaron
You
Glenn,
can go ahead and say it, but I think it's just kicking the rock down the road.
now Aaron Glenn got tore up by one quarterback in his whole tenure with the Lions, and it was Justin Fields. When Justin Fields was with the Bears, it was a guaranteed lock. It was like the 10 points with LeBron James in the sports book. 10 points, LeBron James, just lock it in. Whatever Justin Fields' rushing yards were against Aaron Glenn, you just tuck it every time. He embarrassed him. So apparently, Aaron Glenn was like, the one guy that I want is Justin Fields. Like, apparently, there's just a mutual respect because he could never beat him.
There's no one in the draft worth drafting at their draft pick. There's just no one there. And there's no free agents that are like, oh my God. So you give Justin Fields enough money to make him sign, and you just kick that rock down the road and you'll figure it out another day. I like the contract in that retrospect.
Yeah.
But like, this Jets team is the worst team in the division. And
I will say, another nice thing is Garrett Wilson hated Aaron Rodgers. He's going to love Justin Fields.
They were teammates in college.
Yeah. So, like, if you wanted to repair that relationship with Wilson after he had to put up with Rodgers, because let's be honest, Rodgers has to be a very difficult man.
Garrett Wilson had the best year of his career last year. And believe it or not.
And even then, that's more to my point, though. Even with the statistics coming his way, he looked miserable. And so he's got to be happy now. Donnie, who do you think will have a better year? Because I did think this was an interesting question I had heard on some of the podcasts. Sam Darnold or Justin Fields?
I'm just not a Darnold guy, man. I'm really. I'll get to that in a second because I think they're next. No, it's Philly next. Okay, we'll get to Darnold in a second, but man, I don't like Darnold, and I hate
best ball. They're both on the clock. Late draft, you have to take a flyer on one of them. Who are you taking?
Justin Fields every time.
Every time for me as well.
Okay, so we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
Eagles. You traded for one of the worst offensive guards in the league in hopes of replacing Mekhi Becton. I get it. You couldn't re-sign Becton. You just can't afford it. You lost a lot of pieces, and you've signed nobody.
They retained it, though.
They retained some guys, but they lost a lot. They lost 5 or 6 legit players.
But they called Zach the best linebacker in the league. They truly believe that, and they paid him. You know, they paid him like that. So
well, he's not getting great money for a lot. Like, you know, some middle linebackers are getting $20 million now almost.
Well,
he's a little under that. He took a pay cut to stay there.
Yeah.
Saquon, that contract, my Lord, but like he's worth it. He did everything he wanted.
Like, that's just not good business sometimes. Like Patrick Mahomes took a team-friendly deal. Like
Allen, I will say Josh Allen did take a team-friendly deal. That 6-year contract doesn't kick in yet, and by the time it does kick in, he's going to be the most underpaid quarterback in the league.
I think there was total mutual respect between Zach and the Eagles, and like, hey, we're going to give you a good deal, but we got to be smart.
Hey, when you can finish and win Super Bowls, you get people to take pay cuts.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Pittsburgh, you know, you get DK. You don't know. I can't say anything about Pittsburgh till I know who's going to be quarterbacking, so I don't want to talk about him. I love Donald Parham. I think he's a great talent. I think, you know, DK, I would have done it if I was a Patriots fan.
Okay.
Like,
I do have one rumor, though, like one news that's coming out a lot. Apparently, they traded for DK Metcalf mainly because they believe that I almost said Kenny Pickett, but I'm trying to say, who's the wide receiver?
George Pickens.
George Pickens. I always confuse those in DraftKings too, if you guys have been watching Atlanta. So Pickens apparently might be on his way out. And that's why they were willing to give. To me, like, I love DK Metcalf.
I think Pickens' antics are starting to outweigh his talent. Like, his antics are really hard to deal with.
But that's so do you like the DK trade more though if George is gone? Because like I like the DK trade if you keep both of them because it makes your offense exciting and different and like pairs with that running game very well. If DK is the number one guy, I don't like it near as much.
Well, the problem is George Pickens complains about targets a lot. In an Arthur Smith offense, are you going to be able to get George Pickens, a guy who complains a lot, and DK Metcalf, a guy who complains a lot, targets, with potentially a 41-year-old Rodgers at best?
Now, Arthur Smith has always said that the run game narrative is really pissed him off, and he's always wanted to be more of a play action guy. He's got two great receivers to do it. I just don't know if I can trust him. Kind of to your point. Like,
to be fair, if you want to be a play action guy, then you want to be a run offense. Sorry.
So, what quarterback should want to come to that team? You got Pickens.
I mean, if I'm a quarterback that's available, Pittsburgh looks real good. Because with Mike Tomlin, I mean, if I'm Rodgers, I'm taking a pay cut to go there. If I'm Russ, I'm taking another pay cut to go there. It's a perfect offense.
He's totally a YOLO kind of thrower too. Like we've seen it with the hierarchy deep balls. Like just imagine he could throw some interesting deep balls too.
If I'm Justin Fields, I would have signed whatever contract you wanted me to sign.
I wouldn't have. I think going to the Jets makes a lot of sense.
And I mean, Niners, you lost everyone. I mean, Jordan Mason, hell, he might be gone if somebody wants to give him a deal. I mean, it's going to cost him a second-round pick. But you lose Juszczyk, you lose Greenlaw, you lose. This is a bad offseason for them just because they lost everyone and they haven't done anything.
They've lost their identity. They used to be known for their defense, Donnie. They used to be known for Kyle Juszczyk and like having this fun utility. You know, we're the only team in the league that knows how to use fullbacks. Like that was an actual slogan for them. That was a brand identity for them. You know, like, hey, everyone else has given up on this position. We're going to make it fun again, basically. It's literally what they said. And now that's gone. Their defense is gone. And I get it, cap is a problem. You know, Deebo Samuel maybe he got fat. Maybe he got lazy. Maybe he didn't like you. You know, maybe I don't know what it was. They've lost so much of their identity.
Yeah, they've lost everything that made him a contender, in my opinion. Like all you have left is McCaffrey, I don't think McCaffrey's going to be the same when he comes back. I'm sorry. Also, we didn't say Joey Bosa went to the Bills. That's a good signing for them. They didn't pay him much. Joey Bosa to the Bills is a great pairing with Russo. But
I thought Nick and Joey were going to team together. I
thought for sure too. But also, this Luke Farrell contract, I think this is disgusting.
He's a blocker, so is he the replacement for Kyle Juszczyk?
But then you paid more for a guy worse than Juszczyk.
I mean, that's the only way I could see it being.
This is just an awful offseason.
It doesn't make sense to me because you have George Kittle, and
you're right.
I don't know.
Yeah, terrible offseason.
I will say though, one positive because we didn't say much positive there. I do like Jennings for DFS and best ball. Like.
Yes.
Jennings should be I think Jennings is the number one guy. I'd put
him or Pearsall.
Yeah, but I would put him ahead of Brandon Ayuk. I really would.
I don't know if Ayuk's going to be there long.
He might be getting traded. It's a good point.
Seahawks, you get Sam Darnold. I'm not a Sam Darnold guy. I think he's a fine starter if you give him talent. The problem is you don't have any damn talent, Seattle.
No, they got one guy, Donnie, and I truly do think JSN will be
and Kenneth Walker. You got Kenneth Walker and JSN, but who's around him? Your offensive line ain't great. No. When Sam Darnold's under pressure, he looks terrible. I know that's for every quarterback, but when he's under pressure, he looks terrible.
I truly believe that Seattle will be like the Raiders, where they won't win many games, they won't be exciting, but JSN will kind of give you that Brock Bowers level production this year, where he will get peppered. Everything will go his way. That team will look terrible. The box score will look terrible. You won't want to watch a second of the game. But for DFS purposes, for best ball purposes, you'll want to have a lot of JSN.
Yeah. Next team, Tampa. You just kind of re-signed the guys you needed. Hassan Reddick's a good contract. Doesn't really affect DFS at all.
Will he play?
Yes.
That's my question.
He will play.
How many? 2 games? 4 games? 12?
He has no option. He can no longer hold out.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's been injured in his career. He held out. I'm not even saying he's wrong.
He bet on himself and he lost. Then that's fine.
Yeah, which I get it. I love that he gambled. We're gamblers. I like it. He's just an enigma for me. He does things so uniquely himself. I don't know what.
Yeah, he bet on himself and he was wrong, and that's okay. Another thing. Titans, You sign a good tackle. They're just not going to be good next year. Yeah, I love Johnny Hecker's signing, but again, hell, you're probably going to be punting the football a lot, so that is a good signing, actually. But not a good team.
Oh man, I don't. I was trying to think of something. They kept Tony Pollard.
No, not that I. No.
Oh God, I'm
Like,
trying to think of something.
I think Tony Pollard might be. Hold on, he might be under contract.
I think he is. Like that's what I'm saying. Is like so.
Yes, he is.
So they keep Tony Pollard. You bring in a rookie quarterback. Maybe Tony Pollard is kind of that bridge, that like veteran presence. You bring in a quarterback. What was it? Joe Burrow got drafted, right? They brought in Joe Burrow and Chase.
Chase was the year after, but yes.
I mean, yeah. So maybe you have something like that, and Tony Pollard can be the one consistent.
Well,
thing.
it's supposed to be Tajee Spears under Pollard, and he'll take the job, I assume. But yeah,
maybe.
Like this is just not a good football team, and it won't be good next year either. No matter what they do, it's not going to be good. Washington, probably to me the most fun one because the Eagles got worse. They're granted they're still a 12-win team, and they will draft well as they always do, and they'll look fine and whatever. Commanders, you got so much better. Debo, if he's half of what he was, if he just gives me not last year with the Niners, but the year before that. You don't need to be the 2020 version of Debo. You don't need to be an all-pro. Just be effective. Laramie Tunsil, he'll be fine. You keep Ertz. I mean, you keep all your guys that were big names leaving potentially. You sign Kinlaw to replace Jonathan Allen. Like, this team got better, and they didn't give up much to get better, along with your division got worse. Dallas is worse.
Jeremy Tunsil holds so much, and now you got like a really fun, athletic quarterback that likes to scramble and make plays for himself. I think this could be Jeremy Tunsil's like the highest hold penalty season of his career, and he's known for holding. Like, this could be a bad marriage.
It might be, but they needed a guy to protect the blind side.
I will say though, to your point, like the Texans were the opposite, where they needed multiple offensive line, they needed to retool. The Commanders are at a point where they were on the fringe of the Super Bowl. Like, whether you think that's right or wrong, they were on the fringe. So this is the type of movie you would make.
And the Debo trade makes a lot of sense too. You didn't have to. Though I will say, Commanders, they're done now because they have one first-round pick, and you hope he'll be a player, and then you have a 6 and a 7. So you've got one more player coming in that will be effective if you get nothing else.
The Commanders are so ahead of schedule. It's similar to when the Ravens took Lamar Jackson as a rookie. When you hit on that rookie quarterback late and you don't have to pay him very much, and so much of the stuff starts to fall your way, you can take chances on veterans, that like need to prove something. Like that's where you plug and play on a guy. Yeah. And you're so right. Debo Samuel doesn't have to be the guy. Terry McLaurin is going to get open.
And Cliff Kingsbury is going to drop good plays for Debo Samuel. If Debo has anything left, the plays will be there for him.
He's creative, so that run game is still going to be a thing for him, I bet. I wouldn't be surprised. They put him at tight end some, like almost an inside slot, Anquan Bolden style, do some interesting things. Like Cliff Kingsbury has the creativity as well. I didn't mention it, but I think I did earlier on one of our shows, but just quickly before we wrap up here, Chip Kelly is back in the NFL. I really do think that is a big DFS mover. They're also considering taking.
But he's with Washington. Oakland, Las Vegas. Damn.
I know, man. But I'm saying that. Like, I think he has full reign with that team, though, because they were so bad and because they're almost a bottom builder team and fully developed. That's a team where you might take a chance on a rookie quarterback. He might actually end up with his Ohio State quarterback in Will Howard. That would be my prediction. Will Howard.
That makes sense. Will Howard going there, and he's the backup for Gino.
That would be my sneaky good offense for DFS. Like, if you want to just take a chance.
Well, I mean, Jacoby Myers is a solid receiver, but we're at an hour and a half, so we do have to get out of here.
Well, we don't have to, but we probably should for time's sake.
Yeah. Because we could talk football all day. Me and Logan will go on for 4 hours if we have.
We could. Now, for time's sake, Gov yelled at us for having good structure, so I will get us out of here at the half an hour mark. How much of this podcast, talking about Gov, giving him a shout out, how much of this podcast will Gov watch?
Probably none. He'll probably. I think he should at least look at some of the teams specifically, because we did go in alphabetical order, so it won't be hard to find.
I did want to mention that because he did challenge you the one time you missed a show earlier this year. And he's like, Donnie, if you've watched to this point, use this keyword. And you didn't use it the whole week. So we knew you didn't watch it. So I was like, I gotta flip it back on Gov now. If you've watched this, Gov, I need you to put in fish sticks at any point in this podcast. And by the way, hopefully you guys have watched even live. We have some live viewers. Like and subscribe on your way out. It really does mean the world of a difference to us as we try to get these shows. We will be bringing some spring football UFL coverage to you guys as well, live streams, lineup builders, and there's fewer and fewer fantasy outlets for UFL, less projections, that kind of thing. So we're going to try to fill that void as much as we can. Donnie, you have one more thing?
One more thing, because you mentioned UFL. Let's not let this go unannounced. Kevontae Turpin, USFL MVP, back when it was just the USFL, did get the biggest contract for a special teamer ever in 3 years, $18 million. That speaks numbers to how good these spring leagues can be.
Not just that, because they have big booms, right? Jake Bates is also a UFLer, right? They've had these big boom guys who come into the NFL and make moves. They also have very consistent guys. Like, we have guys returning to their teams now, Donnie, building real chemistry with their quarterbacks. This is a real league. And whether I'm done trying to convince people to watch it. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But it's good football.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that. With that, we are done.
See ya. Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. We're out of here.